Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Talk with the Titans, live from London, UK, all the way to the US of A and worldwide. I'm your host, Kalam L, and this is Talk with the Titans. Tonight's show, we've got an amazing show in store for you, right? I know you read the title, right? Prove God exists. You know, I was actually trying to say proof God exists because I'm hoping that tonight we can finally put all the atheists to bed, all the agnostics to bed, all of the comedics to bed, and we can finally prove that God actually exists. Or are we going to struggle tonight? Are we going to struggle to actually find proof that God truly does exist? Will the comedics be winning? Will the atheists be winning? Will the agnostics be winning? Who will be winning this? Okay, this is like a battle of the theist and the atheist, so to speak. You know, I'm hyping it up. I should really put my Don King hat on and really go in. So I'm trying to hype it up for you, family. Please, family, I want you to first and foremost to share this link with everybody, because this is going to be a truly phenomenal show. We've got, you know, agnostic atheist Rob from Speakers Corner UK in the building with us. We've also got Intelligent Christian. I know most of you guys have seen him as Intelligent Christian on my channel. That is Joshua. He's here with us, and obviously Alpro Atukwe, he's here with us as well. So we got three different vantage points actually going to be expressing their conceptualization of God and what types of methods we can use to prove or disprove its existence. So we've got a fantastic show for you. So please, please, please hit the like buttons from now. Hit the like buttons from now, family, because this is going to be a powerful show. I know we're late, but it's better late than never. So, you know, first and foremost, I have to actually ask this question. Can we prove the existence of God? Because I know we've been battling for a long time. Muslims, Christians, Jews, atheists, Hindus, Sikhs, atheists, Christians, I've said them already. We've all been battling of whether God exists or doesn't exist. So let's see, today, can we prove his existence? Atakwe, are you there, my brother?
Peace,
peace, King. I want to know, okay, I'm going to ask several questions today, but I'm going to start this off with you. Can we prove the existence of God?
Okay. From my perspective, I'd say that no, we cannot prove the existence of God, because I don't personally think that the human mind or the human brain or humans in general are developed to that level to be able to prove or disprove the existence of God. So no, it's in simple terms.
I'm liking that. I should have asked a really precise question before I even went into that, but I've got you, King. I've got you. I hear you. I want to jump over to Rob. Peace, Rob. How you doing?
I'm good. Good evening, everybody. For the time I'll be here, I may not be here for the entire show, but I'll do the best I can. So it depends what you mean by the word proof, I guess, and perhaps we can ask Josh, because he's our Christian interlocutor, what he understands. If it's a scientific proof, then it depends. So currently, my belief is that science can't explore external to the universe, so outside of the universe, the supernatural, if you wish to call it that. But what science can, in principle, work with is if the supernatural interacts in this world, then in principle, we could test that. So if there was a worldwide flood and we could somehow come up with actual evidence, then that would be a proof for a God. And again, I'm sure Josh will go into it more. It's whether, you know, how absolute do you go with a proof? You know, science doesn't work in absolutes, and neither do the most atheists that I'm aware of go with absolutes. And I don't know whether Josh will go that route. I'm not too sure how many absolutes you can really have, but let's assume that there was some kind of supernatural event, a supernatural that impacted in this world, and we could in some way investigate it with science. If that was the case, and everything lined up, then it would be unreasonable not to believe that. You could still claim that aliens have got something in our head and it's all just a computer simulation, but at some point we've got to go, what's reasonable here? And, you know, proof, again, I don't think that proof is an absolute. It's what's the most reasonable explanation given the available information. So let's see what Josh has to say.
Thank you. Well said. So, big brother Josh, how you doing, King?
Yeah, I'm doing very well. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. I'm happy this is your first time coming onto the show. So I'm excited to actually have you here.
Thank you very much. Yeah, no, it's very good to be here. Good to be on this great show. And it's a great topic, I think. So. It's a difficult topic, obviously. It's been something that people have been debating for centuries. But I would sort of agree with Rob. I think it's really important first establishing what we mean when we say, can we prove God's existence? I think a lot of the time people sort of think when we say we want to prove that God exists, we need a mathematically certain proof. I think that's not how we can go about in trying to establish the existence of God. I think we can only look at it probabilistically. And I think there are methodologies that we can utilize to sort of come to the conclusion if it is probable, if God exists or not. And we can go through this criteria, and I think we can sort of try and look through it this evening. But we can sort of try and look at the phenomena of reality that we have, there being a universe and certain features of the universe, and saying, similar to what Rob was saying, what is the best explanation for this existence of this phenomena? And I would say, through my worldview and through sort of the evidence I think that we have, that the best explanation that fulfills the criteria is that there is a God. So yeah, I think it's a big question, but there are ways to sort of argue and reach that conclusion if God exists or not, and we'll sort of have to look at it probabilistically.
Excellent. And since you are literally one of the only theists here, I've got to ask you this question. When we utilize the term God, what exactly do we mean?
Okay, so I would say sort of there's a general consensus now in sort of the philosophical literature since a very prominent philosopher, Christian philosopher called Alvin Plantinga. I think the best sort of definition we can say is that God is a maximally great being. And then a maximally great being will have certain properties, such as being omnipotent, that means all-powerful, omniscient, which means all-knowing, and then perfectly good, which means that he is morally perfect and can perform no bad actions. So I think just basically saying there is a perfect being, that's the definition I try and work with. And I think a lot of philosophers since Plantinga, so we're saying really from the 60s onwards, I've sort of worked with that definition. But it's interchangeable also with a perfect being. You can say God is, when we say God, we're saying there is a perfect being, and then with the similar attributes again of omnipotence, omniscience, and perfect goodness. So either perfect being or maximally great being, I'm happy with those sort of definitions.
Okay. I wanted to know, are we all happy with those definitions before we start? Can we all agree on those definitions? Let me just see.
So a quick question I'd ask Josh is, it seems to me, Josh, maybe you can clarify for me. You said a maximally great being, but then you said omnipotent. And by omnipotent, do you mean literally all-powerful? And if you do all the other omni qualities flow from that? Because it seemed to me when I read it, and again, correct me, because you are more learned in the philosophy, and you're one of the nicest guys and one of the intellectually honest people that I've noticed in Speaker's Corner. So I'm here to actually learn a few things from you. So can you confirm what you mean? Because maximally powerful seems to be not the same as omnipotent. So when you said maximally powerful and then you said omnipotent, I had a question mark in my head there.
Okay, thanks for that. Thank you very much, Rob. Yeah, it's always great speaking to you as well. I learn a lot from you as well, your videos and speaking in the park. But yeah, what I was sort of saying was that God is a maximally great being, and the properties that constitute this maximally great being would be omnipotence, omniscience, and perfect goodness. I don't really like the term maximal power, just because I don't think you can quantify a qualitative attribute such as power. So I would just say I work with the term normally maximally great, and I think that is that from that definition we can also derive omnipotence. But I think omnipotence really is the core attribute, because omniscience sort of flows from omnipotence, and so does perfect goodness. Because let's say omnipotence is it means that God is all powerful, which means God can perform any logically possible action. If he can perform any logically possible action, that means he must have knowledge of how to exercise his power, and that means he must have knowledge. he must have all the knowledge of present so that he can utilize his power in the specific ways that he wants to. And then a perfect goodness as well, that flows from that, but don't really want to start defining that because it gets a little bit difficult. But I feel the main term I'm working with is maximal greatness, and the attributes flow from that.
Okay. Are we all satisfied, or do we need to still pick Josh's brain a little bit more?
I don't know. It's one of those definitions where, well, yes, for the sake of argument, yes, I'd like, yeah, I think I'd ask. Let me ask Josh. Is this, when you say maximally great being, are you saying a supreme being, or is that something different to maximally great being? That's my question.
I would say it's probably the same. I'm happy to change it to a perfect being if you want, if that's easier, because I think it's a lot more. It's something. It's a lot more frequent, that term, instead of maximally great. It's just because in the literature that's being used a lot at the moment. I'm happy with a perfect being, even a perfect person, just a being that instantiates perfection. I don't know if that's fine or not, if people are happy with that.
I think that's good to work with, and we can go from there, because there will be a few of the omni properties that maybe we can talk about as we go through. Okay. I won't get involved. I'm going to moderate, because I got a few questions, but I know my questions will leave us here till the sunrise. So, in that being stated, I want to know, can we utilize the scientific method to come to the conclusion that yes, there is a God? And I'm going to send that over to my brother Rob first and foremost. Okay, as I sort of alluded to earlier on, if the maximally great being interacts in this universe, which I would call the local universe, just from a cosmological point of view, because it's possible that there's a multiverse, and we could talk about some of the evidence. I'm not an expert, but I have a little bit of knowledge on that. But if it's suggested that God can in fact interact in this local universe, then in principle, science could investigate, examine that interaction, because the particles within this universe are then being manipulated in some way by the supreme being. So from that point of view, I think we could see the fingerprints, if you like, of a God. But I at this stage, I would not accept or believe that science can go outside of the universe at this stage, our local universe.
Excellent, thank you. Josh, same question to you.
Yeah, I would say that we can use a universal criteria, inductive criteria, which can be utilized in science and in history, that allows us to understand if a specific phenomena has a specific explanation. And so if we put forward a hypothesis or an explanation of a phenomena, it needs to sort of tick these boxes. And if it does tick these boxes, we can say that it is a true explanation. It's a correct explanation. It's true. And so really the two main things that I think a hypothesis needs to sort of have is that it needs to have a high prior probability, and it needs to have great explanatory power. And so if a hypothesis sort of can achieve this, then we can say that it explains the evidence, and thus the evidence itself renders the hypothesis as true. And so I would say that we can use this methodology to come to the conclusion if it is probable or not that there is a God. I don't think we can use this methodology to say that God exists to a probability of 1. So basically he exists out of logical necessity, in the same way that 1 + 1 = 2. But I think we can say that God, it's more probable than not that there is a God utilizing this methodology of a high prior probability and great explanatory power.
Okay, I like that. I like that. I'm going to get back to you in a little while. Real quickly, family, we've got so many people that's tuned in right now. We started late. I can see the numbers are continually rising. But you know what would help us to rising numbers and to share that out is to please just hit the like button down below if you are here to support Titans TV. If you are here to support my Christian brother, hit the like button. If you're here to support my atheist brother, hit the like button. If you're here to support great African philosophy, please hit the like button as well. If you're here because you're just here for the sake of being here, then why not? You might as well hit the like button. The like button helps us to actually share this information with everybody else because it draws attention to the channel. And it helps to build our audience as well. So please hit the like button so we can actually build our audience and make sure people are here tuning in and you know, getting involved with these excellent conversations. And yes, I know you guys are asking me. I am going to invite everybody else in soon. Okay, soon I'm going to invite more people in. Gin and Tonic Show. Whoop, whoop. The Gin and Tonic Show is in the building. Nine Ethers is in the building. Sarah Garvey is in the building. There's a few people here in the building. Daniel's in the building as well. So I see you, family. So if you guys would like to come on, hit me up via Facebook. Hit me up via Facebook. Let me know that you would like to be on the show. If you haven't already befriended me, send a little message saying, I want to be on the panel Titans TV. And if I see it, I'll obviously add you in or add you as a friend and add you in as well. Now, Atakwe. Atakwe, you there, family?
Yeah.
Can we utilize the scientific method to come to the knowledge or the existence of God?
Okay, so so my understanding of science is that science measures physical phenomena, or we observe physical phenomena from which we deduce certain certain principles that we're looking for within science. So when we talk about science, yes, we can talk about there are aspects of science that talk about things that are unseen, but that's not that. That's maybe going more into the metaphysical or religious arena. To simplify, for me, the question is, can we measure infinity in mathematics, for example? Like, what tool could we use to measure infinity in maths? So then if we can't use, or we don't have any tools to measure infinity, can we have any tools in science, or can we create any tools in science which we can use to measure something which cannot be measured, really? So no, that I don't think that science can be used in measuring God, basically.
Excellent. Okay, so it seems as though that you know, God seems to be a transcendental being that operates or, you know, exists outside of nature or outside of this universe, and merely has the ability, or clearly, if he's omnipotent, has the ability to interact and affect this particular universe. So I wanted to know what method, Josh, can we come to the understanding of God? What method can we utilize to know that there is a God?
So the method that we can utilize is an inductive criteria. Firstly, I'll say there's two types of explanations. When we're trying to explain an event, an occurrence of an event, we sort of have two types of explanation. We have an inanimate explanation, which is normally we call a scientific explanation. And there's different models for this. Some people say it's a combination of, let's say, initial conditions and laws of nature. So if you have an initial condition that includes a cause, and you have a law of nature, which could be a generalization, then we can say that this explains the effect. This explains the phenomena that we have. Other people have put forward models as well. They call it the substance, powers and liabilities models, which says a substance has a power and a liability to exercise its power to time. So let's say there's dynamite. Dynamite has the power to explode when lit and the liability to do so when it's lit or something like that. So that's a way of explaining inanimate explanation. And then you have personal explanations, which are explanations that we give of a specific phenomena, utilizing, let's say, the explanation that has a substance, the beliefs of the substance, the purposes or the intentions that the substance has, and the powers that the substance has. So let's say myself, if I raised my hand because I want to wave at someone, I'm the substance, I wave my hand, I've got the powers to wave my hand, I have the belief that if I wave my hand, I will, you know, greet someone, and I have the intention to greet that person. And so raising my hand and waving has been explained in a personal manner through the substance, powers, beliefs, and intentions. And so when we're talking about God, we're then saying that we're giving a personal explanation of the phenomena. We're giving an explanation here, let's say, of there being a universe, and this universe existing because of the causal action of this substance. And so I would say that we can give an inanimate explanation of there being a universe, which I'm happy to say, let's say it's the Big Bang. I believe we can't philosophically argue for the beginning of the universe. So I don't believe the Kalam argument is a good argument for God's existence. But let's say the universe began to exist at a point in time. Okay, the Big Bang Theory is an inanimate explanation of this thing. But then we have to say, is that a good terminus in explanation? Should we say, okay, we leave it just as that, the Big Bang brought the universe into existence, that's all we need to do? Or coming to existence as a point in time, or there just being a universe, if it's existed for all of eternity, is it crying out for an explanation, for a further explanation? And I believe the terminus in explanation goes even further back to a personal explanation of there being a substance, God, who has the power to bring about a universe, who has the beliefs of knowing how to bring about the universe for specific. So if we go about in this method of saying there is a personal explanation for the universe, we sort of have a way of providing an explanation of the phenomena that also posits there being a God. Long.
Okay. Wow. All right. All right. Thank you. Real quickly, just need to shout out Ultra Funky. Okay. Shouts out to Ultra Funky for actually donating. Again, let me just quickly share my screen if I can. Again, it's you guys that actually make these shows possible by your donations. Unfortunately, this is, you know, one of the only means we can actually keep the lights on, keep the internet being paid, keep, you know, money being available for editing to be done, etc., etc., etc. So I'm very grateful for those people who choose their very best to support the channel and help this great mission to continue. If you would like to actually support us, all you simply have to do is click down below, send a super chat, and you can literally type in how much money you would like to donate, whether it's £2, £5, £10, £20, £50, £100, whatever, depending on how balling you are. You could even go all the way up to, ooh, wow, there's really ballers. There must be ballers around here. So hopefully I can get myself a nice sheikh, okay, or somebody of that stature to actually donate and keep us floating, keep us above waters, man. So yeah, big shout outs to you, Ultra Funky, for actually donating. Like, salute to you. Now let's get back into this. Rob, tell me, man, what are your thoughts based upon what Josh was saying?
Okay, so one of the big sort of questions I have, or objections, I guess, to Josh's view is that, you know, when he talks about the universe, if we just use that as one of the examples, we don't know if the universe had a beginning. So it could be eternal, and I could present the models, and I don't expect Josh to know them all. And I'm even not an expert, but I have got an expert that has presented them, and I've sort of learned a few of them. So at this moment in time, we just don't know what happened prior to the Big Bang. So we accept that the Big Bang cosmology, which is the expansion, rapid expansion of the universe, which continues to go, seems to be the most plausible option out there. But we don't know what happens before that. And I think, you know, we're okay, and those of us who are non-believers are okay going, we don't know. And and my view is that if the best scientists in the world don't have answers for these questions, I don't see how theists can circumvent that. And what I've heard from Josh doesn't give me any. It doesn't appear to give any additional ammunition in that direction of going, okay, well, all the cosmologists are not sure, but it's crying out, as Josh was saying, for an explanation. Yes, we all want an explanation, but at the moment we don't have one. But even if we had one, if you look at any one of the cosmological models, not one of them posit a God. So if inflationary model seems to be one of the most popular, and if you wind the clock back on that one, you get down to an infinitely dense point, let's call it. It's not a singularity, but a point. And that predicts a multiverse. So if you go with the entire model, then you have a multiverse. And if you have a multiverse, then most, if not all, of the arguments from a cosmological point of view fall away. So, but what I notice, and I'm not saying Josh is doing that, but what I notice is some theists, particularly in the park, is they are happy to jump onto scientific claims when it suits their argument, but they'll hop off the train at a certain point and not go all the way, either because they don't know or because they do know but they don't like that. And my question is not necessarily to Josh, but to theists in general. Why not just put science to one side and go, do you know what, science? Because as soon as science conflicts, some theists will go, but science is not. It's not absolute. It's inductive. It can be wrong. It's changed or improved or whatever the term is. And I had the conversation on Sunday, and I just asked the guy, why not just ditch science and say to me, Rob, I just believe on faith, because science changes. And if you don't want to feel like you're being cherry picking, then rather just put science to one side. And I believe on faith, and science kind of gives me a view of the world around me. But as soon as we get to bigger questions, I would put my faith in the book. If you said that, I go, okay, that's fine. But then, of course, it's not a very strong claim. And so that's the challenge I have. So whatever version of cosmology we're going to look at, if we just talked about that one for the moment, we have got explanations for all the different options. For a universe that has no first cause, called the Gott and Lee model, we have one which is an infinite universe, both in the past and in the future, called the Psychic Cosmology model, CCC, Cosmology. I can't think of it now. It's late in the evening, but that's Sir Roger Penrose's model. And then we've got inflation with Alan Guth. So we've got a model that covers all the eventualities. None of them have been proven wrong yet. And so we don't have a quantum theory of gravity. So we can't test these models as yet. So none of them violate the laws of general relativity. So we really are at a point of we don't know. But now theists want to push us as non-believers to go, hey, what's the most likely option? And now we get into speculation. And I think even if we get into speculation, we just don't have a model that predicts God as the cause of this. So all I notice is that theists then have to go to a philosophical argument. And so we jump from science to philosophy. And I think philosophy is great, and I do love it, and Josh is an expert, but it does need to be underpinned by good science. And I think that's where sometimes there's a little bit of hiding the ball, if I could use that term.
Okay. Josh?
Hi, thanks for that explanation, Rob. I completely agree with you. I think my position is that science is extremely important, and I believe that we should trust our scientists because the methodology that they utilize has led us to truth in a myriad of ways. So I was trying to say that I believe that we can't argue philosophically for the beginning of the universe. And so the Kalam cosmological argument is not a sound argument. Number one, I would say all deductive arguments for God's existence are not sound. Just because they can, each premise can be disputed, and it will never lead to the conclusion. We don't have a sound argument with deductive arguments. So the Kalam argument I will never utilize. That's why I'm saying we have to take this inductive approach, and I'm happy to say that, okay, we have some sort of model that explains the beginning of the universe. Or we can even say that there is an eternally existing universe. Okay, whichever one we want to take. Okay, we have a naturalistic system that can bring about this universe, if it is the multiverse or something else, or existing universe. My whole point of why we need to posit then this explanation of a God is because even whatever this mechanism is, or whatever this eternally existing universe that we have is still a logically contingent universe. And so it would still need to have an explanation unless we're going to say that this logically contingent universe is a brute fact. We just don't have an explanation. So even if we can have a grand unified theory, okay, a theory of everything that explains in physics how, all of physical reality, okay, we'll still need to say why, okay, does that law operate, okay, because it's logically contingent in a way, okay. So the way I'm sort of trying to put this forward is that we have this universe that is logically contingent, and thus it will require an explanation unless we are going to say it's a brute fact. But I would say that you would never want to have a worldview where you have such a difficult brute fact to hold to, because you have all of existing reality here. We have this immense universe, okay, it could be a multiverse, that is composed of material objects. These material objects are composed of atoms. These atoms are composed of electrons and protons, which could be, some are composed of quarks, and there could be sub quarks as well. Okay, and we're saying here, why are these things existing? Okay, what is the reason for their existence? Okay, we can put forward a scientific explanation, but then why does that law and that initial condition that are working together to bring about these material objects, why is that operating? So it just seems like the terminus in the back. And so also I didn't put forward the criteria that we need to sort of go forward when we're arguing. So I think this criteria is very important when we're trying to understand if a phenomena supports a hypothesis. And these are four sort of things. I was saying first explanatory power and prior probability, and what sort of the elements of those two things are, firstly, a hypothesis, if it is true, it leads us to expect many and varied phenomena that we observe. Okay, so if we observe phenomena, we expect to observe it if this hypothesis is true. Also, the hypothesis needs to be simple, okay, and the hypothesis needs to fit in with our background knowledge, and it needs to have a narrow scope. And I would say that if we're putting a materialistic or naturalistic hypothesis forward, and you basically have to say that the terminus of explanation is the universe itself or the multiverse, I do not think that that is a simple theory, or I don't think it's as simple as theism, which is postulating there being one perfect being who is omnipotent, omniscient, and perfectly good. And so that means he's infinite in his power, his knowledge, and in his goodness. And I would say that that postulation is more simple than the postulation of naturalism. And also there being a God, is that there is a God. It leads us to expect this phenomena because God will have a reason to create this universe. It could be because he wants to create rational agents. And so he creates a universe, a physical universe that can have embodied creatures within the universe who can, who have the choice, who have free choice between good and evil. God doesn't have this choice, and so God could have a reason for creating creating rational agents who would have this free choice. And so there's an expectation that there will be a universe, a physical universe, that is also conformed to simple natural laws. And so that these rational agents can utilize their free choice. And so all I'm saying, this is a postulation, but we expect there being this physical universe if we have the hypothesis of theism. And we can also say the hypothesis of theism is simple. I don't see that with materialism, which just says there is this immense universe with material objects, maybe infinite amount of material objects, and these material objects are the ultimate explanation. The existence of them are the ultimate explanation of there being anything at all. Sorry, I've been going on for a bit, but I just think that it's a simple hypothesis, theism, and it leads us to expect the data that we do observe. And I don't believe materialism, or sorry, naturalism, leads us to that conclusion.
Okay. I just want to give a big shout out and thanks to my queen, my sister, Honey Pharaoh. Honey Pharaoh, for donating. Thank you very much, Queen, for your donation. It's appreciated. Unfortunately, it's actually gone from the screen. Otherwise, I would like to just put it up there and just show everybody because you donated. Thank you, Queen. Real quickly, let me just quickly do a little stop and break and help me, family, help me. I've got to admit, I am most probably one of the most ignorant people here on this particular panel. And I'm hoping that I'm not just the only one. Hopefully somebody in the panel section, not in the panel section, I'm sorry, inside the chat section actually shares my ignorance and my inaptitude or inept ability to actually understand very highly technical and philosophical terms. So I want to know, you know, because we're going all the way to the universe and, you know, the Kalam cosmological argument and the ontology of the, to me, that's too difficult. I want to know, has God interacted with humans or inside of this world with nature in the near past that we can attest to and we can calculate his existence or its existence or her existence? So I want to know, has there been some type of interaction that can actually prove or give us some insight or make us wonder, this has to be God? What is that exactly? Or is there that? And I'm going to go back to Josh with that.
I would say yes. I would say that that, well, obviously I'm coming from a Christian worldview, but I would say that God's interaction with creation well, the nearest one that we have would be the resurrection of Jesus of Nazareth. And so I would say that that is one of the fundamental things I can say is evidence, further evidence for God's existence, because the resurrection for myself would be the best explanation of the data that we have surrounding the death of Jesus. And so utilizing the same criteria, utilizing, you know, if we said now the hypothesis is the resurrection occurred, okay, would we expect to find the evidence that we have? And so certain historians will say that we have some minimal facts evidence that needs to be explained, such as the experiences that the disciples had, the experiences that Paul of Tarsus had, the experiences that James had, and the empty tomb. And then we'll have to say, well, what is the simplest explanation of this data? Was it that all the disciples hallucinated? Well, I don't think so, because group hallucinations are very improbable. And also Paul, who was an enemy of Jesus, wouldn't have hallucinated. James, who was a skeptic, wouldn't. And it doesn't explain the empty tomb. Then we can say maybe the disciples stole the body of Jesus. Well, that won't explain their experiences that led them ultimately to being courageous and then dying for their faith. It won't explain Paul. It won't explain James. It won't. It will only explain the empty tomb. And so we can go for a myriad of explanations, but I would say, okay, coming back to it, what is the best explanation of this data? I would say it is that God raised Jesus of Nazareth from the dead. And so for me, that is sort of the keystone interaction I can say that God has had with humanity that can be put forward as evidence.
So the resurrection of Jesus Christ proves God's reality, because it's only God that could have resurrected Jesus of Nazareth.
I would say that again, when we're saying proof, I wouldn't say it proves, but I would say it's another phenomena, or it's another evidence that can be put together with the other phenomena that we're trying to explain, and we can weigh it and say, well, does it support the hypothesis? Does it confirm the hypothesis or not? And I would say, if we were just going to take the resurrection alone, I don't think it's strong enough evidence to render God's existence as probable. But then if we were to put that with the cosmological evidence that we're looking at and other evidence, maybe consciousness and religious experiences, if we were to put that together and weigh it, I would say it renders God's existence as more probable than not. And so it's not, I think the way we need to go about it is not saying there's just one evidence here that's going to prove God's existence. I don't think so. I think we need a myriad of evidence if we are going to see if this hypothesis is true. And this works in any field. Evolution, I believe, is a true hypothesis, a theory, because it has a myriad of evidence in favor of it. Same with the Big Bang Theory and things like that. But one piece of evidence wouldn't support that hypothesis. It wouldn't render it probable. I would say the same thing with God's existence. We need a myriad of evidence, and this is one phenomena which is best explained by there being a God than there not being a God.
Okay, just quickly read out some of the chat messages. Other people were asking about Lazarus. Wasn't he resurrected? I'm pretty sure that's Big Avetti pointing it out. I'm pretty sure that there was also a girl that was resurrected as well during the time of Jesus. And obviously during the time of Elijah, there was others resurrected as well. So there's many cases of resurrections people are actually throwing up out there, and I'm actually throwing them in as well. Does that now necessitate God itself? I hear you. Circumstantial evidences. There's various different evidences that draw us to the conclusion, or draw us to a possible conclusion that God exists, based upon, you know, the overwhelming probability of these things happening by random, by chance, by something else. It has to be God. God has to be the only answer. Okay, I hear that. I hear that. I want to actually bring my brother in, my Jewish brother in, actually, Nosun. How you doing, King? All right, I know how to get him on. Shalom, shalom.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay, great. So first of all, I wanted to just start off saying that I think for me, speaking about the existence of God is a bit funny, in the sense that I think like the whole idea of believing in God is because there's a purpose to being on this world, and to do what God wants. So if you believe in God, then you do what God wants. So I think like for me, like I feel like I struggle a lot with that. So I just wanted to, for my own purposes, I just wanted to put that out before we start talking about the existence of God. Right. Okay. Having said that, I want to. I don't know. It's such a big subject in a way. It's difficult to know where to start. I think you started off with a definition, with Joshua's definition of what God is. I think that's how you started. I think for me, there's two ways of understanding. There's two ways of looking at what God is. One way of looking at it is God is the X, like in mathematics. In other words, you say we've got a universe, right? Let's say that you need a cause. Let's call that X. Now the question is, do you need a cause? If you need a cause, then you need an X, and another word for that X is God. So the question arises, and then the question arises, what is the nature of that X? So I think for me, that's one way of looking at it. There's other ways, but I think that's, when you're talking about like the Kalam argument, cosmological argument, you're coming with that idea of, even if you don't know anything about what that X is, do you need a cause? So I think that is one way of defining what God is. In other words, you're not really defining what it is, but it's a placeholder of the cause of the universe. Does that make sense?
Thoroughly makes sense. So basically, God is the cause of this. Basically, anything that causes this universe is God.
Exactly. So the question is do you need a cause, or can something just come into existence by itself? And I think if you want to answer that question, I think if you claim that the universe can come into existence by itself, then you're going to have exactly the same problem as believing in God in the first place. What's the problem with believing in God? It's a supernatural phenomena, whatever you say it. That for some reason people don't like supernatural phenomena. But if that's the problem, then saying something comes from nothing is just as supernatural as believing God. In fact, so you haven't really improved your position if you don't want to believe in a supernatural. Something coming from nothing is the most supernatural thing you can possibly think of. You know, if a cow comes into existence from atoms in space, that's not something from nothing. That's something from something. That's much less of a miracle or supernatural than the universe coming to existence. So I would argue that there's no way of getting around there being a supernatural. I find often when I'm having argument with atheists, the more intelligent ones, the more intelligent they are, the more they'll know about science, and the deeper they'll go, and the more supernatural their answers will be. Right? Somebody who's very basic might just say, "Well, I don't believe because I don't have evidence," but they won't be able to. They don't have a worldview of like answering like how things could possibly come into existence, or these kind of questions. But somebody who knows a bit about science they will often talk about the quantum field, or you know, how in general relativity time is not it's higher than time, so something can exist before something can create it before like you got circular time. These kind of arguments are basically there's no difference to that in a supernatural argument. There's no way we can understand such a thing, and just by labeling it natural doesn't, you know, it's the same thing as labeling infinite God natural. It's just a label, has no you know, it's just a supernatural.
Okay. You on that? I hear you. I want to know, did God, I've mainly like this terrible background. Did God come into existence from nothing, or I don't know? Help me.
So did God come to existence from nothing? So the whole idea is that obviously, yeah, God has always existed, right? The whole point is that if you have the universe is either infinite, or in other words, has always been, right? It could be infinite in other ways, let's say in time. Either the universe has always been, or there was a beginning, right? So if there's a beginning, it needs a cause. If it was infinite, right? I mean, in a way, I can look at it in both ways, right? I can say that the universe is part of God, and therefore the universe is infinite in the sense that it is part of God, or I could say that it's finite in the sense that it's come into being at one point in time. The reason why you can look at it both ways is I'll just give you an example. If you look at a chair, right, you can look at the chair as it came into being when the person cut the wood and made it into a chair, right, at that point. Let's say it was made in 1945 or 2005. Or you can look at it and no, that wood has been there before, it was just in a different form. So if you the same way as if you look at the universe, you can look at the universe as a part of God, and in that sense it's always been there. Right? Or you can look at the universe as when it came into the form of a universe, and that was when it created in the Big Bang, or however it came about. So does that answer your question or not really?
Yeah, that answers the question. So Rob, I want to know, did the universe always exist? Could you give us the several models of the universe existing, or the universe comes to exist?
Okay, the line's not so clear. I think I kind of explained this with the analogy of the chair, so that
not you,
oh, sorry. Go on.
No problem.
Oh, sorry. Okay, so just ask the question again, Kalam.
Yes. You mentioned that there are several models for the universe. Not so much need you might unfortunately there is a terrible echo. Okay, everyone, you discussed that there were several models about the universe. Obviously, there is the multi-universe, there is this universe, the local universe, or this universe, and then there is the universe always existed. Could you just give us a little bit more depth into that? I just wanted to know, did the universe, is there possibility that the universe always existed?
Sorry, pressing the wrong button there. So yes, there's a possibility. Here's the thing. This is, again, we don't know for sure, and this is the main thing that I would say. If there was nothing else that we could take away from this, number one, we don't know if the universe was eternal, or whether it had some form of a beginning in inverted commas. And we also do not know at this stage whether an actual infinite can or does exist or not. That's the main two things. And my cosmological friend Phil was very explicit and explained this. So yes, we have got models that do not violate the laws of general relativity that say we can have an eternal universe. And so Roger Penrose, one of the most famous mathematicians in the world, everybody quotes him, oftentimes misquoting him and using his old singularity theorems, which he did with Stephen Hawking about 20 years ago. He's left that. He doesn't accept that anymore. And so we have got models that show the universe can be infinite, but we don't know until we have a quantum theory of gravity to actually test these models down at the quantum level, because when you wind the clock back, it gets down to essentially the quantum level, where general relativity breaks down. So when we get down there, we need a theory. We don't have it yet. So there are theories out there that explain these. None of them have been falsified. All of them work with general relativity, but we don't know which, because they are mutually exclusive. So if one works, the others will fall away. But we cannot investigate that or confirm one of these either way until we have the quantum theory of gravity. So we don't know. And it's the same thing with the infinite. A lot of people, and not my colleagues here on the panel, because they are sort of more astute, but a lot of people that I speak to go, oh, an infinite is impossible. And they just make silly claims like, oh, can't have infinite bananas, etc., etc. All we can really say at this moment in time is we don't know. And the reason we don't know is because the universe is flat. If the universe was curved, it's just the geometry. Either there's three options. Either it looks a bit like a saddle, in other words, it's sort of convex, or it looks a bit like a ball and it's concave, or whichever way I might have those two mistaken, but it's one of the two, or it's flat like a piece of paper. And it's not really like a piece of paper, but that's essentially the way we could think of it. We've measured it, and when I say we, the experts, and it's flat. And because it's flat, we cannot say that an actual infinite is impossible. That's all we need to say. So at this moment in time, there's a big I don't know. And I did sort of listen quite a lot to what sort of Josh was saying there as well, and Nossen. And if we speak to my other sort of cosmological friend at Speaker's Corner, who's done 3 years study into this, he will say to you that the quantum vacuum, which is essentially outside of the universe, can give rise to a universe. It has no intelligence. It can literally randomly give rise. And he would give you the more in-depth explanation to this. And that is a perfect natural explanation. Again, it's speculative. We don't know yet. But that is essentially a explanation from a natural cause with no will or teleological, which is like a mind, so to speak. Now, I know theists don't like that, but really none of us know. So I think all of us on the panel here are honest in the sense that we're agnostic from a knowledge point of view, and then we've got the theist and the atheist. So we're all agnostic, and then we've got, if somebody came and said, I'm a Gnostic theist, in other words, I know God exists, now that's a very, very strong claim. I'm sure even Josh, and from what I hear, neither of them would make that claim. And so really we don't know, and so now we're trying to work it out. But my point is, we don't know the universe really at this stage. We should both just, all of us should say we're agnostic. But I do notice that some of the guys want to go, well, it has to be this. Well, we don't know at this moment in time. That would be my biggest thing. And the same with the infinity. We just don't know at this stage. You're muted, buddy.
I'm even talking and my mic's not even unmuted. All right, I'm going to open it up now to the rest of the family. So if anybody else would like to actually speak, please unmute your mic and you will have the floor.
Hello.
Okay. Oh, right.
So I'm going to go first of all to Atakwe and then Nosun. Okay, so Nosun, just mute your mic, and then Atakwe, after you finish, mute your mic.
Okay, so I've just listened to a lot of what the guys have said, and for me, I don't know if we're just complicating things. I think in order for us to be able to prove something, we need to have something which is like whatever it is that we're going to prove. So none of us, like Rob is saying, none of us have anything that we can compare to God. We have ideas of God. We have, some writings or some records of people who have mentioned God in history. People have said, or people believe in God, but there's nothing that we can measure tangibly can equate to God. So we can go into the scientific argument, we could go into the quantum argument, we can go into sort of philosophical arguments, we can go into as many arguments as possible. For me, common sense dictates that if we don't have anything to compare this thing to, and secondly, we can't create or tools to measure this thing that we're talking about. I don't know if we're wasting our time really in trying to figure out or prove something which really is a claim which hasn't ever been proven before, and it's probably really going to be proven. And even if we do prove that there is a God, then there's going to be subsequent questions after that, and then subsequent questions after that. So as much as we can try, I don't think that the human being or human beings are capable of proving this particular concept. And then also, just finishing off, there are certain things called mysteries. We kind of know everything in life. So if we kind of know everything, then, I'm not saying that people should give up on the idea of God, but there are other things to focus on other than trying to create this. And I personally believe that human beings have created this being and have imposed on other people. But yeah, it's a mystery at best, speculation at best, and there is no way that we can prove it.
I just want to know, without utilizing the Bible and without utilizing the Quran, especially for the people who are on the panel right now, the Torah, etc., like, would you have come to the conclusion that there was a God? What was your impetus to even accept the idea of God in the first place? Is it via socialization, acculturation? What is the process that made you come to the understanding of God? And if those books or whatever it was wasn't there, could you have naturally come to the conclusion that there is this God that is, omnipotent, maximum, sorry, I can't even utilize your terms, man, but omnipotent, omniscient, etc. Could we come to that conclusion without utilizing these particular books? And I want to put that over to Josh, and then afterwards, Nasun, sorry, I'm going to come back to you.
Yeah, so myself, I became a Christian how many years ago? So 6 years ago, from an experience. Okay, obviously, I believe God was speaking to me. I was lying in my bed, and I heard a voice saying that if I die tonight, I will not be with this person. And so I automatically associated that experience with God. And so from that experience, my whole life completely changed. I was doing crazy stuff. I don't want to go into it, but I was in a strip club the week before. So, I mean, you can see my life was completely a different place. And so after this experience, my whole life changed, and I devoted myself fully to this belief in God. And so I can say maybe if I was in a different situation, I wouldn't have associated that with God, that experience. I might have maybe thought I was, maybe psychologically ill or something like that. But just analyzing it philosophically now, back over the years, I would say that, and this is not my argument myself, but it harkens back to Alvin Plantinga, but I just believe that we come to knowledge of God's existence, or we form a belief in God's existence, not from evidence. It's a properly basic belief. It's a belief that that is psychologically triggered in us by an experience that we have. And so I would say the majority of people do not base their belief in God's existence on evidence of, let's say, it's a philosophical argument or something. I would say they base it on the evidence of their experience. But I believe that also we can utilize arguments to further ground our faith. So even though our belief is not formed utilizing arguments, I believe it can be further grounded and strengthened, and objections thwarted. And from that, our belief will be strengthened by utilizing arguments. But I would say the majority of people will have to say that it's based on a belief which is properly basic. And we can go into that terminology, it gets a little bit more difficult, but it's really based on our experience, I would say. But then our experience can correspond with reality and the evidence that we have to help us support the faith that we have. But I would say it's not formed or based on this argumentative evidence, but our experience.
Right. You know what? I apologize, but I've got to say this. You know, I'm hearing that was the ancestors that was calling out to you. You know, ancestors saying.
That's a good one.
And another one I've got to get at you with is this. You know, I got some inquiring minds. You know, I can see the ladies going wild in there. They've seen you. They've seen your form. They've seen your shape. They've seen your physique. They're wondering, you know, was Josh in the strip club throwing the dollar bills, or was he stripping himself? Don't answer it. Don't answer it. It's best to leave it as
I think let's leave
it. All right. We've got some new faces that have joined us. You know, shouts to you, Stefano. Shout out to you as well, Harry Singh. But right now, I'll go straight to Nasun, and then afterwards, I'm going to go back to Rob.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. So, I would say for me, Rob said before he thinks most people are agnostic theists. I would say for me, I'm a Gnostic theist. So for me, I feel that I know that there is a God. Now, obviously, we're all limited, so we don't have perfect knowledge of anything. So obviously, that's a relative term, in the same sense that I would know anything else. For me, I understand it well enough that to me, that it would be. I feel that I know that there is a God. Now, I just wanted to say about for me, like how I came to the conclusion that there's a God. So actually, I was interested in like physics as a kid. Actually, my education, I didn't really study physics in school, but I had a book on physics, and I was interested in physics, read popular physics, and in physics, this all energy. Everything is from, there's just like four forces: the nuclear force. Actually, it's been so many years since I've read it, but the strong force, the weak force, the gravity, electromagnetism, and those forces itself are actually come together as three forces and two forces, and string theory is supposed to bring the forces together. And the belief among most physicists is that there's one force. The point being that for me, at a very young age, I felt that if this was the case in the physical world, where when you look at a chair and you look at a banana, they don't look like it's just energy. It's just all comes from one force. They look so different. To me, if that was the case physically, that I felt even more so was the case when it comes to emotionally, spiritually, intellectually, where things do seem to come together intellectually. I felt even more so that the unity of everything made a lot of sense. So for me, that's how I came to the idea of God. It was actually not through religious books. Was through philosophy, through understanding physics. Later on, I came to, it's actually I'm the opposite to Joshua, because later on I did have a feeling of a connection to God that I did get later on. But my first experience, so to speak, was actually philosophy, and not through like a connection to God. Yeah, I think that's basically it.
Right. Okay. I'm going to go over to Rob.
Thanks, Kalam. This will be my last one. I'll have to bow out after this. It's getting a bit late. I'm going to go and take care of my child. So I was very interested, thanks to both Nelson and to Josh, obviously. I wanted to ask Josh, and obviously I'll watch this back so I can listen to his answer, about the properly basic belief, because the Muslims make a similar claim with the fitra. As far as I'm concerned, that's utterly buried. That's dead. Now, you may have a different version, and maybe you can articulate that for me, about the properly basic belief, because obviously if there is such a thing as a properly basic belief, then I don't know whether it's the same as the fitra, so maybe you can explain whether it is. But if it is a belief inherent in human beings in some way, all human beings, as opposed to just some of them, then maybe you can say whether it's all human beings or just some. And is there some way we can ascertain whether this in fact is the case in the world? Because the claim from the Fitra, which I know may not be the same as yours, is yes, every human has got this innate belief in a God, and it's the Fitra, and it's obviously Allah is the particular God. Now, that claim, both from a philosophical and an evidential point of view, as far as I'm concerned, is completely dead. It's buried. It's, you know, unresurrectable. So I'd love to know and what he means by properly basic belief, and is it the same as something like the laws of logic, which would be considered properly basic or self-attesting, and what evidence he got to support that. And then quickly onto Nossen's side of it there. Yes, there are different energies, but I'm not sure that I would characterize having those four forces, and potentially, like you say, there's a fifth force, which might be dark energy or whatever it may be, or, you know, string theory, whether we could say that's all just one force, because I know that some people like Nossen and a few others want to put it all together and call it God in some sense. And is that the same God that, for example, Josh believes in, which is a God that's, you know, intelligent, has a will, etc., will judge us and punish some of us, etc.? So is it that sort of God, or is it something else? Because it may be that they haven't quite got the same God. But either way, from my point of view, at this moment in time, I'm unconvinced. I am happy that Josh has gone with what he essentially calls the cumulative case, which is the William Lane Craig approach, which is there's no one argument that's overwhelming, but if we try and put all of these together, then we have more probably than not a God that's existing. For me, that's a victory for the non-belief. I know Josh might smile. It's kind of pushed it back to a point where they've now got to put together 5, 6, 7 arguments to make it, quote, more probable than not. And that is, from what I can see, the best evidential approach that I've seen, rather than, you know, the very low-level approach that we get at Speaker's Corner, which is one argument that they think's a knockdown argument, which, of course, I'm sure Josh would agree is just not the case. So I'm pleased in that sense that it's, in my view anyway, shifting to my side of the playing field, so to speak. Josh may argue the point on that one. But at this moment in time, I'm unconvinced, obviously, that certainly that any of the gods that I've heard here exist. But I've said it, and I'll say it on the show again. There is a version of God that maybe I could discuss with Josh and even Nossen, for that matter, that I think is consistent, that has none of the problems that I would associate. We don't have enough time now for all my objections, but that I associate with the Abrahamic gods, that if that God existed, not only would I be happy, but I'd want to have a relationship. And if the God that from the Abrahamic, one of the Abrahamic religions existed, I would have to accept it if there was overwhelming evidence, but it would be world shattering for me. It would be like, in my world, living in a cosmic North Korea. I could not imagine living under the Abrahamic God. And of course, Josh and I could have that conversation because he believes God's all loving, and we could have a long conversation. So I remain utterly unconvinced. I don't know that a God doesn't exist, so my position is an agnostic atheist, so I don't know, but I reject the theist claim, the belief claim that a theist has, and again, we could talk about Nossen's knowledge claim. I think that's too strong, but I reject the belief claim that a God exists, and so I remain a agnostic atheist. And I do thank you all for the evenings. It's a bit shame that we started so late, so maybe we can do it again a bit earlier, but thank you so much, and I will bid you good night.
Right. Good night, Rob. Always a pleasure to have you on. All right. I know we're going to have to round up very soon, very, very soon. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm actually going to open up the panel to our audience members, if you so choose to come on. We'll be posting the link directly into the YouTube chat section. So please check out the YouTube chat section. And also, family, we have over 120 people tuned in right now, and the likes to dislike ratio is despicable. Please, I'm expecting to see at least 60 to 70 likes within the next 30 seconds. So show us some love, show us some appreciation. I know it's late, okay? It's 12:30, okay? 12:30 a.m. over here in the UK, and we're still here trying our very best to stay awake, stay alert, stay lively, to drop some gems your side. All I'm asking for right now is some reciprocity, okay? Just show us that love back. Hit us up inside of the comment section. Let us know what you actually like about these types of discussions here, what you dislike. Let us know. I want to know exactly, can we have some interaction? We really want to hear your particular views as well. This is the whole, beauty of Titans TV. Titans TV was not only just, let me go there. I'm going to do my normal spiel and say Titans TV was birthed out the idea that the intellectual giants, the titans of our community, can have a well-organized platform to present, discuss, and debate critical information affecting our community proposed by you, our audience members, our community. So I just want to let you guys know we do this for you, okay? I literally put on these shows for you guys. I know I was where you were, you know, I don't know, however many years ago, and I was always watching, you know, the great titans, the great intellects of our time, or even past times, you know, debating information, you know, presenting information. And I was like, it would be so wonderful if we can just simply get the normal people who are just watching this information to actually interface with these great titans, these intellectual giants. And I created, you know, this particular platform, Titans TV or Talk with the Titans, to accommodate that. I definitely want people who are there, you know, shouting, screaming at the TV screens or the laptops or the phones, to have the opportunity to actually speak with these individuals that you may see at Speaker's Corner, you may see on Titans TV, you may see on other platforms presenting information. Here is your opportunity right now to question them and to critique them, and to even show your love and appreciation for the great works that they have been doing, you know, endlessly and effortlessly as well. So, and that being said, let me just continue with this. I don't know how much longer do we have. Let's just check. I'm gonna check the time in a little while, and I'll let you guys know how much longer we have. But let's see. Yeah, I see the numbers have gone up. Even, you know, we even lost a dislike as well. So that's beautiful. So thanks for actually hitting the like button, family. It really, really does help. Okay, who would like to speak next? Please just unmute your mic and mute your mic again so I know who would like to speak next. So there's Josh. Anybody else who would like to speak after Josh and Seer? And yep, Josh and Seer. Okay, cool. All right. So Josh, the floor is all yours.
Okay, thanks, Kalam. Yeah, I just wanted to respond to what Rob was saying. So I was trying to put forward the thesis that belief in God's existence is a properly basic belief. And so that's a belief which is not based on further beliefs. It doesn't need to be based on evidential arguments. So a lot of the time we go around saying, okay, there's not enough evidence, I'm not going to believe in God. And so the argument goes, actually, the belief that we're having in God is not the type of belief that needs to be based on evidence, because there's loads of beliefs that we have which are not actually based or they don't have a basis on evidential arguments. So an example would be like belief that other people exist or belief in other minds. We just take it as a properly basic belief, a belief that we just assume that is true because of the circumstances we're in, occasion or form these beliefs that we have. So if you're standing in front of me, the circumstance just occasions that belief within me, and so I believe that that's standing in front of me. But it's not based on evidence. I haven't formulated an argument to say, oh yes, that person is, you know, this amount of centimeters away from me, therefore whatever, you know, he exists. I've not come to that conclusion. And so this belief is a belief that's at the it's a technical term, but it's at the foundation of my noetic structure, so the foundation of my system of knowledge, belief in other minds. And so belief in God is the same sort of thing as well, because the way belief in God is formed is not formed actually from arguments. A lot of the time people believe in God because it's occasioned or formed by the circumstances. And so the example of myself, I was lying in bed and I had that there was a God who was speaking to me. And so that was not grounded on an evidential argument. So a lot of the time we're going around actually trying to answer the question of God's existence in the wrong way. Oh, you need evidence, you need evidence. Actually, no, God's existence is based differently. And the reason it is, and it's similar, sort of similar to what Rob was saying about the fitra in Islam. Well, Christians will say that we have the sensus divinitatis, we have the sense of divine or divinity within us that is occasioned and triggered in certain circumstances. But we would say something a little bit different for Muslims, that this sense of the divine or the sensus divinitatis is not operative in every single individual because of sin, because of the sinful nature that we inherit. The sensus divinitatis is not operating in every single individual, and that's why we don't have a lot of people believing in God. But when we have the Holy Spirit, who regenerates our heart, we will then say that the sensus divinitatis is repaired, and so then it can be functioning properly, and so that we can now correctly believe in God in the right way. And so we have a different way of arguing for it. And so the way that we sort of go around saying, well, does this sensus divinitatis actually exist or not? Okay, that's the big question. Rob was saying, well, it's been buried, the fitra, you know, people don't hold to that. It's been buried maybe scientifically or something like that. I would say the only way we can argue for it is indirectly. And we can argue for it by putting forward arguments for God's existence. And so if God does exist, or if God can be shown to be to exist more probably than not, then we can infer that he will also endow us with a sense of the divine. And so the way is, that's why we can't go around arguing and saying, well, you know, you need to believe in God because we have this sense of divine within us. No. Firstly, we need to establish that God's existence is more probable than not. And thus, if that is true, then indirectly we can say that then he would have endowed us with this sense of the divine. And so the way I will argue and why I communicate with people, I'll put forward arguments and say God's existence is probable. And so we can establish that point. But my belief isn't grounded on that argument, it's grounded on the experience that the sensus divinitatis gives me. And so it's more of an indirect approach, a Christian approach, than the Muslims. Okay, sorry, I've been talking again a lot, but I was just trying to answer some of the points that Rob gave.
I know Rob is going to be thoroughly pleased with your answer. So thank you. I'm going to mix it up now, okay? I'm going to mix it up, okay? I'm going to set the fire right now, okay? I'm going to literally unmute Ansir's mic and set the room ablaze. Brother Ansir, peace to you, family, and, you know, floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Welcome to everyone. Thanks for having me on. Great to be here. I've been listening. I didn't catch it from the beginning, but I've been listening for about the last 20-25 minutes. I was listening to Josh's argument about the properly basic belief, and therefore, that's basic. The thing is, I thought the title of this is Prove God Exists. So I'd assume that somebody is going to take the responsibility to demonstrate the existence of God. Now, I mean, I like Josh. Josh is a great guy. I've chatted to him once or twice. To be honest, I really enjoyed chatting to him. He's a nice, intelligent, pleasant fellow. But I'd have to say that this argument about God being a properly basic belief, it really doesn't hold up, because all you're really doing is putting the cart before the horse. You're just basically avoiding the responsibility to have to demonstrate it, or logically or physically or in any way. You're just saying it's true. It's true, and I know it's true, and it is true. The point of this is for you to demonstrate a reason why somebody who doesn't already believe that should believe that. And you're not going to achieve that by just saying it's a properly basic belief, because I don't agree that it's a properly basic belief. My understanding of using the term properly basic belief is that it's a self-attesting belief, meaning that it's unavoidable, it's inescapable. So the way I look at things as a naturalist is that if me and you are going to have a discussion about whether God exists, and especially if the topic is prove God exists, because that already places the responsibility on you, the onus of burden of proof. So my way of looking at it is that if we're going to have a discussion about that topic, first of all, me and you both have to establish what things we can start from. So we say, do we think the universe exists? We both have to say yes, because we can't have a discussion if we don't think that a universe exists that we're in. So then we say, do we think that we exist? Yes, we have to assume that as well. Do we think that we have consciousness? Yes, we have to assume that as well. Do we think we have rationality? Yes, we have to assume all of those things before any discussion or any thinking or any logic about any topic can occur. Why those things are defined as self-attesting, and those things are defined as properly basic beliefs, because without them as a foundation, you cannot even begin a discussion and talk about rationality or assume rationality, because you haven't even accepted the situation that we're in. And it doesn't matter if you're going to say God definitely exists, and I know this. What we're asking you is, given the assumptions that the universe exists and we exist and our consciousness exists, now, starting from this point, let's go ahead and you prove it or you present your arguments for proving it, and I'll reject them. But just to say that it's a properly basic belief in itself, it's just avoiding the situation. It's just avoiding the fact that you have the burden of proof.
Okay, so thanks, Ansu. So firstly, I wasn't saying that that was the argument that I was putting forward. I was just giving an explanation for saying that the grounds for my belief are not on an evidential argumentative basis, but we can still utilize arguments for people who do not take belief in God to be properly basic. But also, just to comment on your criteria of a properly basic belief, that criteria itself will not be properly basic. You'll need to be evidence, because something that's a self-attesting belief, your criteria itself won't be self-attesting. And so that means that you'll need evidence to support that criteria which you utilize. You said properly basic beliefs are self-attesting beliefs. Well, is that criteria self-attesting? Well, obviously it's not. It needs evidence to support that it can be taken as a criteria. And so your criteria itself, you'll need to put forward evidence to support that. And so just reject that criteria. Secondly, what I will agree with you, we need to obviously assume things for argumentative sake. I'll need to assume that there is a universe. What I was saying at the beginning when we were looking at proving God's existence, or trying to do that, we need to firstly say that we cannot prove God's existence, because the existence of God is not a logically necessary fact. And so there are certain things which are logically necessary truths, such as mathematical truths, the laws of logic and such forth. And so those are the things which we can put forward proofs for, but we cannot do that for God's existence. We can only argue probabilistically. And so we need to use an inductive methodology. And I think we can agree on the criteria. And I was putting forward the criteria before, which a lot of people utilize in science and in history. And the criteria would be that the hypothesis needs to have a high explanatory power, or sorry, great explanatory power, and it needs to have a high prior probability. And I was saying that the hypothesis that there is a God is something which does have great explanatory power, and it does have a high prior probability when we are looking at certain phenomena, such as there being a universe, because the universe itself is something which is logically contingent. I'm happy to even say that, okay, the universe might be eternally existing. I don't utilize a Kalam argument. I think it's a very weak argument, and I don't think people should be defending it in the park. But the fact is, I'll say, well, there is a universe here. It could have begun to exist, or it might be eternal. However, we will have to agree that the universe is logically contingent. Okay, it's not. It doesn't have to be the way. It didn't have to be the way that that it is now. It could have been different. The universe could have been different. Could have had different atoms and so forth. And so it's not logically necessary. It's logically contingent. And so that means if it's logically contingent, it's crying out for an explanation. And I would say, I'll put forward the hypothesis that there is a God is a better explanation than just saying that the universe, the logically contingent universe existing, is just a brute fact. Because that's what you'll have to go on as a naturalist. You have to say, well, there is no further explanation. The terminus of explanation stops with there being an existing universe. Okay? But it's logically contingent. That means you have to take it as a brute fact. But I think that the way that we're trying to go forward with our worldview is that we try to eliminate the amount of brute facts that we have. And so we try to find explanations for certain things. But it seems like if we're just going to be a naturalist, we don't have an explanation for there being a logically contingent universe. There could have been the multiverse that brought the universe into existence. There could have been some other naturalistic mechanism that brought this universe to existence. But that thing itself would need to be logically contingent. And so you're just sort of pushing you know, the goalposts even further. And so we'll need to explain that mechanism which brought the universe into existence, because it'll be logically contingent. And so we still need an explanation for the universe, or for whatever brought the universe into existence. And I'm saying this, the hypothesis which with the greatest explanatory power and the highest prior probability is the hypothesis of theism, that there is a God.
Okay. Okay, do you mind if I respond to that just quickly? Because I just want to say that basically all you've done is presented an argument from ignorance, which is that because you can't understand how a physical universe can operate and exist without any metaphysical or supernatural explanation, therefore you think that that is the most probabilistic. I mean, you can't use words like probabilistic, because probability is a mathematical tool for finding out how likely something is when you have the full set of all possibilities. When you know the full set of all possible outcomes, you can then identify a probability based on the last occurrences. But we only have one universe, so we can't say how probable it is that it needs a supernatural explanation or not. Just because you cannot understand or you cannot accept that it might just be a brute fact that the universe is indifferent and there is no outsiding supernatural magical explanation. Just because you can't accept that, that is the only reason you are presenting as your basis for this probability argument. There is no other one, and that's what I'm trying to avoid, is that we come to the understanding that the universe exists, we exist, our rationalities exist. We have to assume those things. Then we can talk about debating whether you have any argument or logic or evidence for insisting that God does exist. Because if you can't do it from that point, there's no point in insisting that you can do it at any other point. That's the point you're supposed to do it.
Sorry, Callum, can I respond? It's just, well, actually, I'm still not putting forward an argument from ignorance. I'm simply saying, and I think we would agree, that the universe is logically contingent. It's not logically necessary. Something which is logically necessary has an explanation in itself, okay? The necessity of its own nature, okay? So I don't need to find a further explanation for why 1 + 1 = 2, because it's a logically necessary truth. However, the universe existing is something logically contingent. And so normally with logically contingent things, we will seek for a further explanation. And so let's say the universe's existence, okay, the logical contingent existence, has an explanation outside of itself, which is the multiverse, okay? So we're pushing it forward and saying there's a further explanation we can put forward, which is the multiverse, okay? But that multiverse itself will be something which is logically contingent. And so we will still be looking for an explanation for why there is a multiverse. And so my point is that as long as the universe is logically contingent, we will need to weigh hypotheses and see which one explains this data best. And I would say that the hypothesis that there is a God is something, okay, which firstly leads us to expect this data. Okay, there being a God leads us to expect that he would create such a universe that we have. And also, it is a very simple hypothesis, okay, that there is a God. Instead of there being this logically contingent universe of material objects that are composed of a near infinite amount of atoms, which are further composed of further fundamental particles and so forth, okay? So we have this really complex system, which is the universe or the multiverse, which is logically contingent. And you're basically saying we should just leave it at, at that. It's a brute fact, okay? We don't need a further explanation. But then I'll ask you, why should we put the terminus in explanation at just that, instead of pushing it further and saying, actually, there can be a personal explanation to this. If I can't have an inanimate scientific explanation for the universe existing, okay, which we might be able to have or not, okay, then we can put forward a personal explanation. And so we have an explanation for this logically contingent universe. And I'm not talking about the Kalam argument here. I'm not saying that, oh, we don't know the cause of the universe, therefore we need to posit a God. I'm not saying that. That will be God of the gaps. We might have, and I believe we'll have, a naturalistic explanation. I believe we'll find a theory of everything that will explain the physical data. But that theory of everything itself will be something which is logically contingent. And so the laws that encompass that theory will also need to be explained. And so can't just leave it as a brute fact if we're really trying to be rational adults here, okay? Because I don't think science works in that way. If we were just going to leave things as brute facts, let's just stop doing science. Let's not bother anymore to find deeper, more fundamental explanations. But that's not how we work.
Okay, Josh, I just want to say, but that's exactly what you're doing. Because when you say that this logically necessary, not logically contingent, blah, 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 whatever, the fact of the matter is we have to seek a further explanation because we don't have one yet. That's not an excuse to make something up personal to yourself because it feels better. Now, if you were to be consistent, then what you said at the end there, you wouldn't have said it, because the fact of the matter is, if we still have to find an explanation, that's fine. An honest and rational person will say, yes, we don't know yet. Let's keep trying. Let's keep doing science, and let's keep building evidence and models and theories until we get better pictures and better answers. Not because we don't know yet, we have to make up an explanation because we have to have an explanation. That is the most intellectually dishonest thing to do. And you just admitted that that's exactly what you're doing. If you don't know something, we just admit we don't know, and science will keep trying and keep changing and developing and getting closer and closer to the truth. But at any point to say, because we don't know something that is logically contingent or whatever, for any reason, just because you don't know, and then to make something up, that's, you know, I just don't understand how that is intellectually reasonable in any way, shape or form.
Okay, so I don't want to hog the mic again, but just to respond to you, when I'm saying we don't know something, and what science is really saying is that we do not know what is this physical direct cause of the universe. At the moment, we don't know because the laws of the laws of nature break down when we get further closer to the beginning of time or whatever. Okay, so we don't know the physical direct cause of the universe, and I have no problem, and I will leave it to scientists to go and figure it out. Okay, I will go and do that. But I'm simply saying whatever can fill that gap of the physical direct cause of the universe would be logically contingent. Okay, especially it being physical, it will be logically contingent because it could have been different. And so that itself will need an explanation of its existence unless we leave it as a brute fact.
But you can't claim to know that you know what that is. You're just saying that logically there must be something to explain it. But then how can you claim to know anything about that something? You can't. You haven't even demonstrated that there must be something. But even if you insist that there must be something, you can't then claim to know what that something is. You're just saying because based on the logic.
Okay, so I would say that, well, we can put forward hypotheses and say which one explains the data best. That's what we do. And so that's what people are doing in science and in history and in other fields. Okay, they put forward hypotheses and say which one explains the data best. And I would say we can put forward the theory, the hypothesis of theism, and it explains the data very, very well. Okay, and so, sorry?
You're wrong. You're technically and specifically wrong. Theism as a hypothesis does not explain any data better than the scientific models we have developed. The scientific models we have developed far supersede the theistic model of the universe, with God sitting on a throne controlling everything. That is ridiculous. The scientific models we have developed are much more in tune with the data of everyday observation and millions of scientific experiments. And another fact is that with your theistic model, you don't even have a method of falsification. You cannot claim to have any scientific credibility to your theistic hypothesis, which you like to call it that, because it doesn't play by the rules of science. It doesn't have falsification criteria. It doesn't specifically refer to the evidence and present itself as the only explanation. You need to do things with these. You need to establish these things before you claim it to be a scientific model in any way.
Okay, but of course it has falsification criteria. It's simply if we put forward evidence which falsifies a hypothesis, then it is improbable and thus false. And so that's what people who are atheists do. They put forward, let's say, arguments such as, or evidence that there is suffering in the world. And if there is too much suffering, and if there is the intensity of the amount of suffering that atheists say that we have, then that will render God's existence improbable. And so there is evidence here which will not be explained well by the hypothesis. And so we have the ability to do it. It's not like people are just saying, oh, we're going to look at the positive evidence for God's existence and then look at the then establish the probability. No, we're going to look at the myriad of phenomena that we have and say, well, does this hypothesis explain the data? And is it a simple hypothesis? And so if we have naturalism here, we can have naturalism maybe explain the data very well. But then it falters in the simplicity of the hypothesis, because simply it is something which is extremely, extremely complex. If you understand how many material objects we have, and you want to leave that as the ultimate explanation of reality itself. And so simplicity is one of the most important criteria, because we can have an infinite amount of hypotheses which explain the data very, very well. Okay, but the simplicity of the hypothesis is what will really be the key that we or the grounding that we'll need to establish if we're going to see if a hypothesis is true. Just like a historical hypothesis, someone could say, okay, you know, we have the data here, someone killed someone, okay? Was it this one person called Bob? Okay, that explains the data well, maybe. Or we can have 10 people who went and, you know, all orchestrated this killing, okay? What would we ever say is the more likely to be true? 10 people who orchestrated this killing, or this one person who also had the motive to kill this person? The majority of the time, we would say the most simplest hypothesis is that it was the one person that killed it. And so simplicity is one of the markers of truth. And so if we have theism, ticks the box of explanatory power, okay, explains the data very well, and then it is the most simplest hypothesis that we can put forward, I don't see why we can't postulate it, why we can't put it forward as a viable hypothesis. And that's what I'm really trying to...
Yeah, and I totally understand your point, and I think that's fair enough. But I will tell you that it's not a valid point, and it's not a good point, because the problem is this: is that you're mixing up science with philosophy. Now, you use these philosophical ways of thinking, and which is all fair and well, to suggest that there are logical reasons for why your God is an explanation. That's fine in the realm of philosophy. But in the realm of science, we don't play by those rules. Any explanation is not as good as any other explanation. It really does depend on the specifics of the data and the matching of hypotheses with the results of experiments. You really have to get down to the nitty-gritty of it. And so when we have a title like Prove God Exists, we expect you to come up with things that we can tangibly relate to, because as people with different types of philosophy and different types of thinking, we're not all going to think about the world in the same way as you. So you do have to go a bit deeper than that to convince any of us that a God exists. So you have to play by the rules of science if you're going to do it. That's the rules of philosophy, then that's fine. But then your explanation for it, we could simply use your explanation and put another type of God there, and it's the same for all of them. So it really doesn't separate your theism from any of the other theisms.
Okay, sorry, last point. I just wanted to say, well, I do understand what you're saying, but philosophy still plays a part in it. You can't, and a lot of people do this, they divide science from philosophy. Of course you can't do that. There's a philosophy of science, which is so important in setting scientific methodology. Without the philosophy of science, scientists won't have any methodology to utilize when they are testing hypotheses. So the philosophy of science is key as well. So a lot of people can't divorce philosophy from science. You can't divorce philosophy from anything. A lot of the time, people are just doing bad philosophy.
Yeah, but just because science has a philosophical foundation, that doesn't mean you're supposed to do philosophy in the science lab. That's just ridiculous. Everything has a philosophical foundation. This is the same point as our self-attesting and properly basic beliefs. The fact is, we do all have to start from some assumptions, and therefore science has to start from assumptions. But guess what? So does philosophy. So the fact that science has to have some philosophical grounding is neither here nor there. It's not a valid point. It's not relevant, because we all know that. Anybody intelligent already knows that, and we have to work with that. But when you come to doing science, you're not doing the philosophy of science. That's just the grounding that you've had to use for that method. But when you do science, you play by the rules, by the scientific method.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. But what I was saying is that we utilize the philosophy of science in setting our methodology. And so I'm utilizing that methodology that comes from the philosophy of science, okay? And then what I'm looking at natural phenomena. And we're trying to say, what is the best explanation? Is it simply an inanimate explanation, or can we utilize a personal explanation? Because we use those two categories in explanation in our everyday life. Okay, we have inanimate explanations for many things, okay, such as, let's say someone, you know, there was a mat that was, someone exploded a building or something, okay, with a piece of dynamite. An inanimate explanation would be the conditions, the initial conditions of the dynamite and the fire and the match, okay, and the law that, you know, dynamites, when it's lit or whatever, explodes at this veracity or whatever, okay? And then you have a personal explanation. You have the explanation that it was a terrorist which lit this match because he believed that he wanted to, you know, explode the building, had the intention to do that, and had the power to lit the match. Okay, we have two explanations here, and we utilize this in everyday life. And so we can do the exact same thing when we're trying to formulate an explanation of the phenomena that we have. We have the universe here, and we have inanimate explanation, which we can utilize, such as the Big Bang Theory. But if we cannot have a correct terminus in explanation with just an inanimate explanation, okay? Because like I said, at the end of the day, the universe is logically contingent. And so unless we're going to say it's just a brute fact, simple as that, okay, then we
that could be
also, yeah, it could be, but I'm saying then we also can put forward.
Why make up something when that could be the case? Why make up something to fill the gap when that could end up being the case?
Okay, firstly, I'm not saying you have to, we're making up anything. We're formulating hypotheses, okay? The same way anyone will be formulating a hypothesis.
Yes,
we're formulating a hypothesis.
Wait until the evidence comes in, not assume it to be or superseding the other explanations, which do have more evidence for them. So that's what I'm saying to you, is you play by the rules up to 2 steps of the scientific method. Then you totally ignore it and go to philosophy and say that that's justified and you're doing science, but you're not. The fact of the matter is that you can't do that. The fact when we have scientific explanations and then you posit your God as a scientific explanation, you have to play by the scientific. You have to provide the evidence. You can't just make that claim and then say you're in science, but really your only claim is based on philosophy.
So what do you mean by evidence?
Okay, Josh and Sia, hold on for a hot second. You know what, family, this has been really interesting. It's been really interesting. I see, you know, in the background, I see a few members. They've got their drinks. They've got their popcorn. What's that you eating there? See, I catch you. I caught you. What are you eating? I don't know what you're eating, but I see you eating food. You know, I ain't gonna lie. I am eating popcorn as well. I'm listening intensely. I know after this is played back, I'm gonna be there taking down notes, listening to what Rob was saying before, taking down some notes. Listen to Josh. You know, a simple. You know, that concept there was I don't know, I've never heard it before from anybody's mouth except from yours. So I definitely need to go and do some research on that. So hopefully everybody, I want you guys to grab your pen and your papers, okay? Rewatch this video, pause it, take your notes down, ask some questions with inside of the comment section, because I'm pretty much sure that my titans, okay? My titans such as Josh will be here. My titans such as Rob will be here. My titans such as Atakwe, my titans such as Ansia will be here to actually, and Nosun as well. Where am I going? We'll be here to actually answer your questions. Unfortunately, okay, unfortunately, it's 1 o'clock in the morning, okay? It's 1 o'clock in the morning, and I don't have much juice left inside of me to continue live on air. I apologize, family. Usually we'll continue till late, but today I have to cut this show short. Even though it's been on for quite some time. It's been on for quite some time. I'm sure it's hit the 1.5 to 2 hour mark by now. So family, if you've got any last questions or comments to make, just tag Titans TV, and post your question or comments down below. And just let me know who would like to actually answer, or who you would like to actually answer those questions. So if we don't get it answered right now within this live section, which is going to be closing in the next minute, please ask it inside the comment section, and I'm sure our titans will come back on and answer it. Listen, don't try those ones, you know, don't try those ones. I see you, family. Oh, Black Falcon, what's good, family? I see you. Miss KK, peace to you. Who we got here? We got Konsu in the building as well. Young Cali, what? Who else is up in here? Shabir. The shuffle is here. And is all hitting the ones, you know. I love that. I love that. Betty in the building. Oh man, the king is here. King Cali is here. Where's the proof? Where's the proof? You know, everybody's screaming, where's the proof? So you know what? Of course, we're gonna do another show. We're definitely gonna do another show. They want Josh back on the panel as well. So Josh, we're gonna have to hook this up where we have you back on the panel. But again, if you guys are here, right now, I'm posting the link, okay? I'm posting the link right now for you guys. So if you would like to come in, there's only like about 2 more spaces. So please pass through. Peace. I'm out. Link up on Sunday. Big up Titans TV. Yeah, big up, man. What historians witnessed the resurrection or confirmed it, and what century did they exist in? Okay. Okay, no problem. I hear you. I hear your concerns. Official Speakers Corner. Letitia Webb. Wow, I didn't even know you was here, man. I'm glad that you enjoyed. Good job. See you in the park. Okay, London Black Atheists, man. So we need to get London Black Atheists on as well. Some real good brothers and sisters that are actually there, tuned in Titans tuned in. So hopefully next time around, we'll get you guys actually on the panel with these brothers. You know, look at that. Everybody's got their meal. Look at that. Harry, what are you eating? What are you eating? Yeah, I'm baiting you up. What are you eating there, King?
Butter chicken, G.
Whew, butter chicken, you know. I thought you was a vegan.
Working on it still.
All right. I won't tell anybody.
Love my chicken.
That shouldn't be. All right. So, family, it's been an absolute pleasure. We're gonna have a behind the closed scenes conversation. Yeah, I know who you meant. I know who you meant, official. I know who you meant. But you could text it to me anyway. But I know who you meant. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna continue this right now off air though. Okay. yeah, I see you, King. So we're gonna continue this. If you would like to speak, simply unmute your mic so I'll know who goes next. Who wants to go next? Let's see. Okay, Atakwe is on first. All right, cool. Atakwe, I'm going to leave everybody in suspense because they're going to wonder what is going on. What is going on? What's Atakwe about to say? But thank you guys for tuning in. It's been an absolute pleasure. This has been Talk with the Titans. We've had our brother Josh and Rob on here from Speaker's Corner. Proof God exists, or prove God exists. The atheist and theist conflict. And hopefully we've got a better understanding where the atheists are and the theist proposition is as well. So hopefully we can get to continue this conversation because I'm not trying to resolve anything. Don't ever get it twisted. A lot of these times I'm a fire starter. I'm here to start the fire, and I want you guys to continue these types of dialogues, these type of conversations in your place of work, in your place of worship, in your home environment. And of course, let this overflow into Speaker's Corner as well. So let's continue this conversation a little bit later. So peace and love. Peace.